Running an agency doesn't have to feel like juggling flaming chainsaws. At Schmidt Consulting Group, we help you ditch the chaos, land more clients, and even enjoy running your business again. No fluff, no BS, just strategies that actually work. Check us out at schmidtconsulting.group because your agency deserves better.
Join us on Schmidt List as we dive into innovative UX strategies with Callie Myers, founder of Common Marvel. Discover how journey mapping and seamless experiences can drive your business forward. Tune in for insights that could redefine your approach.
Callie, how are you today?
Hi, Kurt. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. We have a long history together. We worked together many, like 2 decades ago, or at this point. That's
ago, it feels like.
Yeah. Lifetimes ago. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's catch up with the audience. What are we doing these days, Callie, and who are we working with?
Yeah, so thank you again, Kurt, for having me. I'm Callie Myers, founder and principal strategist at Common Marvel, which is a UX research and strategy consultancy here in Minneapolis. We work with product and business leaders to help them create clarity and alignment and grow their business by identifying the biggest experience opportunities that they have and aligning their teams and stakeholders on how to seize those opportunities. We do that by offering UX research, experience strategy, and information architecture services. But those are all towards the bigger goal of creating clarity and alignment and growing businesses and reach.
Yeah. Well, it's important work. And personally, being a person that comes from the agency, having an outside perspective come in and help you with that sort of stuff is just invaluable. The amount of speed that can happen, you can jump over a lot of bureaucracy. I think it's fantastic. And I'm guessing you really enjoy the work.
Yes, I do. And that is one of the reasons that I love being independent is jumping over while respecting it and understanding that it's there, but working with client teams to really help them clarify what they're struggling with and collecting information and insights and analytics and data from all different parts of the business and different types of user groups, and then crafting the story around what are the biggest opportunities for them to have an impact through their business, increase their business, growing as a company, and then working with them to actually turn those insights into action that their teams can then take, which is, I think, something that differentiates Common Marvel from some other consultancies that just kind of do the work and then drop a big deck on the.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's a lot of consultancies that love to drop a deck and leave. So let's talk about some of the important work you do, which is, and we talked a little bit about this, which was user journey mapping. Now, I want you to explain what is user journey mapping and what are some of the other common terms used to describe that? Because over the years, I've heard I've even heard people refer to it as a sitemap or things, right? So there's so many ways of referring to it that are incorrect or maybe adjacent to it and not exactly. Explain to me what your perspective is. What's the right way, not only to refer to it, but how to think about it?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. A user journey map is really a way to organize insights for the purpose of shared understanding and action amongst the team. It's a visual representation of a person's experience with a given task or experience kind of over time. It highlights the various stages of an interaction and the user's thoughts, emotions. Mentioned earlier, the tool really helps organize and helps teams and organizations understand the user's perspective, align design decisions with real needs, and create more seamless user-centered product and experiences. In our work, we're doing research. We're conducting generative research for our clients in order to help them gather the insights that are going to inform the work that they do and the decisions they make, the prioritizations that they make. And the user journey map is something that we create after the research to help them understand what we've learned and what it means for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm listening to this and I'm someone who I've got a roadmap, I've got a team, we're moving. How this type of work, how does this enhance what I'm doing and not interrupt what I'm currently doing? Because that would be a concern that I would have of stopping and being like, oh, let's take a deeper look at this user journey. How do you usually integrate into sort of a moving train, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that the train does not have to stop for us to come in and help an organization conduct this research and develop this level of understanding. But it does give the train a little bit more meaningful direction. So, though, as I mentioned, the work doesn't have to, but oftentimes without this kind of understanding or level of clarity, product teams might run into features that aren't being utilized as anticipated, or maybe they're struggling to prioritize their roadmap and figure out what to do next. They want to do so many different things, and time and resources are limited. So how do we know what to prioritize? We look at analytics, we look at customer success feedback, we look at usage stats, and then we also do our own research to understand really, again, what the user is going through and how this product or service fits into that experience or doesn't, to identify what are the biggest opportunities. So again, the development effort does not need to stop for this work to happen. And it also, I would say, gives the clients a broader understanding of end to end what the experience is. So then again, we can help prioritize what they're doing next and why, kind of tying some of these product and design decisions to business objectives and goals.
And these types of things are what I've found really valuable about them, at least in my past experience, is not just the internal use of them, but being able to put versions of these in front of users and say like, this is how the current experience works, but what if it worked like this, or things like that were also really powerful as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's maybe you're evaluating a new version of the experience to figure out if this works better or worse, and what kind of unforeseen consequences that creates for people, because that's not always facility. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem that I've seen with a lot of work in those areas where you kind of get caught in this dark room where you can only see what's in front of you and you're sort of grinding it out. So that's why I say like bringing in people from the outside is great, but also finding a way to communicate very clearly with your customers on not just what the roadmap is, because most of those roadmaps I see are just a list of features coming in the next versions. Right? Yeah. And to me, that's not what I learned. That's not how I learned what a good roadmap consists of.
Yeah, we really have to tie. So the list of features, we need to know that, right? Because that's going to inform the work that our teams are doing. But why are those the prioritized features? And what do we anticipate happening because we're prioritizing those features? What impact do we want those features to have on the experience and on the business, on the users and on the business? What do we want them to do differently with these new features or tweaks? Oftentimes, I'm working with a team that might have some researchers in-house, but those researchers and even the design team, they're used to doing usability testing only. That's the only type of research they have a lot of experience with. And that usability testing, it's super valuable, but it's also very siloed. You're asking for a user to use a feature that you've already designed based on hopefully inputs, but oftentimes assumptions, and then collecting feedback from them on it or observing how they're using it or not using it. And that will then inform how you make changes to that feature or the surrounding features, but it's not going to give you a high level understanding of the end-to-end experience that an individual relation to your product or your services and doesn't really give you an idea of like new things or missed opportunities in the same way that generative upfront user research does, which is what leads to these kind of journey maps.
Yeah.
I'll also say that a lot of clients can start their journey maps with just by tapping into their collective knowledge, but making sure that everyone knows that this is kind of this is an exploratory map. This is not the map has not been validated, but that allows everyone to get clear on that. okay, where are the biggest holes in our understanding of what our users are going through and how we're helping them or not helping. That we can lead to the research. Go ahead.
And it doesn't need to be like this giant overhaul. I mean, you can it's not like you map out the entire journey for everything. You can map out pieces at a time.
Correct.
To really focus on those areas. So it's not like this big lift and shift that people have to expect when you come in, right?
No, it's not at all. Say, for example, I've done a ton of research with healthcare companies. So we've done journey maps for the patient experience, for the provider experience, for the payer experience. So those are like the insurance companies, for pharmacist experience. And all of those players are in the same ecosystem, but they're doing very specific things. And say, for example, a patient they want to find a doctor and schedule an appointment. Well, that's a journey for them. It might take 5 minutes. It might take 5 weeks, depending on what they've got going on and what they care about and what they are concerned about. But doing research to understand different people's perspectives and what they care about when they're going through that journey of finding a doctor, scheduling an appointment, and visualizing all of that for the client team, help them understand, okay, what specific pieces of information do we need to make sure are available to our members when they are looking for a new doctor? What do they care about? And then what do we care about them?
Right.
And then how do we organize and design the presentation of that information in a way that makes sense and is clear to the member who's looking to pick a doctor? Because if we give them everything we want them to see and know and nothing that they want to know, they're not going to trust this experience. So how do we find the best things in a way that makes sense to the user, to the member? And then how do we help them schedule an appointment quickly and efficiently and then get them on with their day? Because this is not a fun journey. This is not a fun task. Identifying the areas of opportunity, the points of friction, the missed opportunities really helps the client then like you said, it's not a complete lift and shift. It's revisiting the flow to make sure it makes the most sense to most people, and then reorganizing the different pieces of information about a specific provider to kind of ease that friction for users. Simple as that. Yeah.
And in my experience, especially, like, I'm glad you brought up the healthcare one, because I've done some work, especially in telehealth. We have my old agency, and when we were coming in, we were just tweaking one part of the experience at a time and testing those things versus like rebuild the whole experience and ship it and then see what happens. So to your point, you don't need to look at it like this huge, like, upset where you're changing everything. It could just be one screen is going to have a different piece of functionality on it during the journey, and see how that goes, and then go to the next screen and the next. Yeah. So it's not this big lift and shift. The other question I have specifically too is that because it is a user journey, how often do you have to incorporate brand guidelines and brand needs, marketing, those sorts of things as part of like how you're communicating, or even legal, right? I'm sure all these different inputs come into, it's not just the product people wanting to create just a great experience, but I'm sure other people have say or need to have input into that user journey as well. How do you incorporate their feedback into that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the user journey map is specifically focused on the user and their steps, their experience, their challenges, their question, their emotions through end-to-end experience, and incorporating things that are more on the business, on more emphasizing operational layers of our business that include maybe things like product features, business considerations, legal considerations, or marketing needs, or kind of behind the scene processes and features that then turn the journey map into more of a service blueprint, which is just it's a different type of diagram than if the user journey map is kind of outward looking at a customer or a user experience. The The service blueprint is more of an internal looking tool that sort of highlight, okay, if these are the opportunities that our users are bringing to us, how then do we meet those opportunities, and what are all, as I mentioned, the layers of operational considerations or challenges that we all need to understand. And the service blueprints are really great to help business leaders understand what all needs to be in place in order to support user needs that have been identified through their research and visualizing their journey.
Yeah. So can you walk me through the difference between a service blueprint and a user journey? I mean, for you, I'm sure it's pretty clear, but for other people, maybe those terms can overlap or feel confusing sometimes.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, right on. So user journey map, again, is a visual representation of a person's experience of a given task or kind of flow over time, whether that's interaction with a product or a service or an end-to-end experience, like the example I gave earlier with finding a doctor and scheduling a visit with that doctor. So the user journey map of that process for a user highlights the various stages of the interactions, their thoughts, their perspectives, challenges, emotions at each step of the flow of the experience. And again, that tool is to really help organizations understand the user's perspective, align product and design decisions with real needs of those users, and create a more seamless user-centered product. Then there is the service blueprint, which is just a slightly different lens of the same structure or same experience. So if we're thinking about the finding a doctor and scheduling an appointment, we've got user actions. So finding a provider, reviewing their profile, scheduling with them. We've got the front stage, which is the visible interaction. So that might be a search tool, that might be results list, that might be a doctor profile, it might be the scheduling feature. Then we've got backstage features, which are invisible processes or technology that support the experience. So what's the back end structure that's supporting all of the content of the writer profiles, for example? And then what feature tool and what are all the points of logic that have to go into that? What teams are responsible for that? Who's in charge of those things? Who's the decision maker? How much money is being spent on it? Maybe if that's something we're thinking about. What are the KPIs we want those different points of interaction to maintain? Or what are opportunities to make those things better or more seamless? And then you've also got support processes. So those are policies or systems or departments involved. And I kind of mentioned that earlier. So let's say we've got the scheduling feature there's some technology behind that. There's a department that supports that. There are some policies and systems in place to make sure that runs seamlessly operationally. So that a provider isn't booked more than once with a patient, or that there's enough room in the schedule for that person. So that's just an example of how the service blueprint gets a little bit more focused on the internal workings of the business that's providing the service that's going to meet the user need that is identified in the user journey map. That was a mouthful. I hope I didn't lose anybody there.
I thought that was great. I followed every word of it. It was great. Yeah, to your point, there's so many other inputs that come in, right? Because credit card processing, legal agreements, right? Like privacy statements, especially like you're talking about in more highly regulated industries like healthcare and stuff. There's a lot of checks and balances versus like a dating app or something, right? Like there's just a lot more where those services that come in order for you to complete your journey, there's a lot of inputs there.
And so the business have to be aware of all of those and understand the expenses that they're incurring with those things, and who's involved and what the process is like, and to help identify opportunities for efficient and streamlining things from leadership perspective.
For sure. Well, and again, the experiences between mobile and desktop and all these things also create a whole new wrinkle to everything, right? In terms of where people are at, because that's something even back when you and I worked together that would come up in a lot of discussions. Where are people at when they're doing these tasks? Also came up as a big part of the user journey, right? Because Are they in the doctor's office when they're scheduling? Probably not. Are they on their phone? Probably. Different things like that. Having a good understanding of where that journey begins, right? Like physically for that person was also always a big part of how we would design things, even in my last agency.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point in that if you've got multiple user types, multiple personas, for example, each persona is going to potentially have a slightly unique journey map for a given experience that might inform different questions or different emotions that they're facing to the experience. That might inform actually different still take to the experience, depending on who they are and what we know about them overall. So that's a really important part of one of your first steps in crafting a journey map is to make sure you understand the journey that you're going to map out, but that you understand who is walking through, because that's going to impact how the journey comes to be.
Yeah, and I find that in those cases, it really brings out it fully fills out that user a bit more too, as you walk a mile in their shoes, basically, right?
Yeah. And getting back to the point about having to slow down or stop work to do this, that is certainly not the case, especially if you already have a lot of colleagues or teams around you working with these individuals as customers or members or users or constituents, however you want to describe these people. Oftentimes, especially even when we're brought in to do research, so the client understands that research needs to be done, we always start by talking internally with stakeholders to understand what they already know about these people or this experience and identify the holes that need to be filled. So we don't come in saying, clearly we have to do research because no one knows anything. We start by collecting information that everyone already knows and figuring out how to either validate those understandings or maybe cleanse them a little bit through research, and how to identify new things that we didn't know.
Yeah.
That will then be put out in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what, in terms of timing for these sorts of things, I mean, I'm guessing it depends on the size of the journey, but is this, again, back to the point of like, I don't have to stop everything I'm doing, but, is this going to take a year? Is this going to take 2 years? I know it depends is the right answer here,
Yeah.
but I still, as a former business owner, I like that idea of timelines for these sorts of things. So give me a little bit more of like how much work goes into something like this.
Like you said, it depends, but a typical engagement would be anywhere from 2 to 6 months. Really, just that would be like we're gathering information about what we already know to be true. We're roughing out an initial map. We're identifying areas of opportunity, and maybe we skip the initial map because we know we don't know enough to put one together. But then we work out a research plan. We go execute on that plan, conduct the research, synthesize our findings, and put a research-informed map together that then we can take into facilitating workshops and planning sessions to then help the client, like I said, understand what to do about these new learnings and observations. How can we translate this map into action? And that's really, if you don't do that, all this is really for naught. There's not, we don't want it to sit there and collect dust. We're doing this work in order to inform work that's already happening or is on the roadmap to happen.
Yeah.
So that includes, we bring our point of view to the table as the researcher or the research team, but then we pull in people from engineering and design and product and business strategy and marketing and maybe operations, depending on what it is we're trying to plan out. And we do some workshops around, okay, what are the biggest opportunities that we've identified through this journey mapping exercise? And with those opportunities in mind, what are our possible options for how we address those opportunities?
Yeah.
So we're not going straight to finding the solution. We're not saying this is the experience and this is your solution. This is the experience. Here are the problems that nets out at an opportunity for us to address. How can we address those opportunities? Then we get all sorts of different solutions. And then we work together to identify the appropriate solution given the business context, the goals and objectives, and like really what we've got in terms of time and resources to make something happen. So, yeah,
It's great. I like it. I think again, it's such an important task. It's just, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure, again, you've lived it for a long time, but having an outside perspective come in and really dive deep into those things can really make or break the KPIs you're trying to get that year. I've seen it over and over again, where having an outside perspective really can set you straight and set you into a place of where you were kind of, I don't know, shooting in the dark, to now you got a really razor sharp target that you know exactly what you're going after.
Yes. And even if you don't feel like you're shooting in the dark because you've done some usability testing, so you've heard something from users, that input may be so siloed that you've got a lot of other questions that you haven't been able to answer. So a lot of times when we start working with a product team, they've got so many different questions. And so we help them kind of prioritize which questions they should work on getting answered first. And then helping them understand that some questions like, do they want a calendar tool, a calendar view, or a date picker view? Okay, that is something that we work out in usability testing. But we might get some signals from that doing our upfront generative research that then would come up in how we craft the journey map.
Yeah.
That then leads to a design team that's more and can make better decisions about the interaction patterns that they're bringing into the experience. That then we can go test, and we have a better chance of getting positive results out of the tests.
Yeah, which ends up, again, the real benefit here is it speeds up the team, right? They're not running into hurdles and roadblocks and twists and turns. They've got a very clear direction, and so you're also getting more optimized production out of the whole thing.
Absolutely. There's so much efficiency to be gained by doing the upfront research. Really, like you said, giving everyone a clear sense of who this user is and what they care about and what they will respond to or not. You could clarify that or summarize that as deeper user understanding, what ultimately leads to, again, a more effective and efficient design and development and launching process. You have a better chance of getting it right the first time, which saves money in the end, saves money and time and energy. And your team is more confident in what they're doing. They're more satisfied with the work that's coming out of it. And they feel more supported and motivated, really. I worked
for sure.
I worked with a few design teams who are out there. It's a group of very talented people. They're a little worn out, a little haggard because they just don't have the information that they need in order to make the best decisions that they are capable of making.
Yep.
So giving them some upfront understanding of who the audience is, what they're going. It's amazing the ideas that come out of the right design team when you give them the information that they need to make informed decisions.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same in development too. I mean, I've seen so many bootstrapped built applications that still years later still have a lot of those same patterns in things in there just because some engineer pulled something out of a library and stuck it in there. Like you said, something as simple as a date picker, things like that, which in some cases can really upset the journey overall for people.
Yeah. When it comes to like every step of the product and the service development process can be impacted by this research and doing user journey mapping or even service blueprinting at the end of the day. But when it comes to discovery and ideation, this kind of work, a user journey map really helps you identify the highest impact opportunities by pinpointing where users are struggling the most. That then informs your kind of design scope. And when it comes to designing and typing experiences, this kind of insight really guides the prioritization of the features to align with a broader strategic goal and helps the designers validate or clarify early assumptions before testing, like we said. So the testing is a little bit more refined. And then informs their interaction patterns, interface, and the engineers identify critical user flows and prioritizing the technical implementations, and maybe even selecting the specific tools that are going to support that technical implementation, and building just more user-centered functionality. I think a lot of times engineers are left out of user research and this kind of journey mapping exercise, but it's really important to have them along for the ride too. Because they bring such a, for lack of a better word, technical understanding of how things are going to come together. So letting them know and build empathy with their users really it helps everyone go the extra mile and feel confident in the decisions that they're making. It could go on and on about the different sets of journey mapping, even beyond engineering. When we get into launching a new product, you can plan for potential onboarding challenges if you know kind of what frame of mind your users bring to this experience. You can inform customer support strategies and initial engagement strategies. So make sure that your customer support team is prepared and understands what might potentially come at them from users and how to help those individuals. And you can also build more informed marketing messaging and strategies to really meet people where they are with your launch. All of this is toward the main goal, again, of growing the business and through serving users. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yep. Well, that's great, Callie. Well, I could talk to you all day, but we got to cut it short here. And if I want to get in touch with you, if I want to learn more about the work you're doing, because obviously it sounds like a lot of people could use it. Tell me more about how I can get in touch with you, how I can find out more information.
Yeah. Thanks, Kurt. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Callie Myers. My last name is spelled with one E, Myers. My website is commonmarvel.com. So it's common as in shared and Marvel as in miraculous or Marvel comic books, depending on what you're into, commonmarvel.com. And actually on a website, I also have, for anyone who's listening who wants to try creating an initial journey map or has maybe done some research and is struggling with how to organize it in a fashion that can lead to for their teams. I've got a tool on the website that's free to download, and it just goes through the many points and steps of what it takes to put together a journey map and some considerations to make along the way. And then what to do after you've got your journey map, how to engage your stakeholders and get them thinking about what the journey map is showing them and how that might lead to action. So you can link to that on my homepage on commonmarvel.com. And I'll give the URL to you, Kurt, so you can put it specifically in the show notes.
I will. Awesome. Well, Callie, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad we got to make this happen. I appreciate you taking the time to join me. We'll have to do it again. We'll have to check in again here sometime soon, because I always love picking your brain about interesting subjects like this.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you left a review on iTunes or Spotify. It makes a big difference. And be sure to check out schmidtconsulting.group for more ideas and insights. Remember, every big dream starts with a single step. Keep moving forward, stay curious, and don't forget, we're rooting for you. See you next time.